What's up? It's time for our first NCAA regional edition of ACC Baseball Etc. This postseason, ACC Baseball Etc. is brought to you as always by Pitch Logic, the system used by players, coaches, scouts, and instructors at all levels of play, from youth leagues to the big leagues. The easy-to-use and affordable technology makes the platform accessible to every player at every level. All the metrics and features used at the highest level. Go to pitchlogic.com for more info. I'm Daron Vaught. Hi. Danny Graves is with me. Miami
Hello.
Hall of Famer, Cincinnati Reds Hall of Famer, fresh off of a trip to Charlotte, your favorite airport. Anyways, I know you like the city, but
I love the city. I love the ballpark. I love everything about Charlotte except for that airport. It is a disaster. There is nothing there that is easy, and it's hot, and you got to bag check, bag drop, and there's nobody there to tell you what to do. It's just a disaster.
It's been under construction.
Yeah.
They've been doing construction there for like
17 years.
It feels like a dozen years.
Yeah.
So it's always something new, always something.
Yeah.
But glad you made it back home.
Yeah.
Glad you made it to and fro for the ACC Baseball Championship. It was a good week. Good to see you in person. We don't get to do that much.
I know. Believe it or not, all you listeners and viewers, this is how we see each other every week.
Yeah.
Until the tournament. Yeah.
Until the tournament. Literally, It's like once a year.
But you were busy too. I know you always say that I'm busy doing that stuff and 3 games a day, but you were busy. You got a bunch of guests on, man. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, some interviews. I felt bad. The audio was wonky for Gage Zeal, so we didn't get to post that. But, Zach Morris, Vance Honeycutt, talked to both of those guys and, did some stuff around. Yeah. And I had my own games to call sort of in the middle of the week, had bolted for the Big South tournament and then came back for that. It was a good week. ACC Baseball Championship is like one of my favorite weeks of the year.
Yeah.
And it delivered again. So kudos to the ACC. A lot of people that I could name, I'll just lump them all together. They did a great job with the event.
Yeah.
And Duke comes out as the champion.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't get a top 16 seed. Is that where we start with bracket reactions? Should we start there?
Yeah, I think so, because when we got on here, I don't even know if I said, "Hey, what's up, dude?" I just said, "How does Duke not get to be a host?" I mean, what more do you have to do? And I get it. It's not a perfect science, and it's never going to be a perfect way to pick these teams to get into regionals or even to host in the top 16. But if everybody's starting to believe now, like we have believed, that the ACC is one of the best conferences in baseball, how do you not get any respect back for winning the ACC championship, where there's a ton of great teams at this championship? Maybe you have a different answer. I don't know. Is it the facilities? And not disrespecting ECU, because they've got probably one of the best facilities in college baseball, right? The atmosphere there it's insane. And I love that place. But I do believe that Duke deserved to have a top 16. Instead, they're thrown into ECU's bracket.
So
they're not in ECU's bracket. Sorry, Wake Forest is, but
no, so they're Wake Forest is with ECU. Duke's going to
Oklahoma. Yeah.
Which I think is a good draw for them. I think that's a very winnable bracket for them. Mm-hmm. We can talk about likelihood of advancing for ACC teams in a bit. ECU got the number 16 seed. Mm-hmm. They failed to even make it to the championship game of a much lesser American Athletic Conference.
Mm-hmm.
It is noteworthy that ECU had someone in the room on the committee. It is noteworthy in cases like Coastal Carolina, who I'm glad to see in the tournament, because I think most people throughout college baseball, with respect to their head coach who's outgoing, he's retiring at the end of the season. I don't mean it that he's like extroverted and fun, which he
probably
sometimes
is.
can be,
maybe,
but he's on his way out. He's retiring at the end of the season, whenever that is, for the Chanticleers. Matt Hogue, their athletic director, is the committee chair. So if it's close, I know he's technically not in the room when they talk about Coastal Carolina, but he's on the other side of the doorway when they're talking about Coastal Carolina, and everybody else in the room knows that. And they spend some time with him to hang out and probably get to know him and like him. And it's likely a you help me, I'll help you understood agreement when you get into that setting. So ECU had that going for it. I don't think, look, the committee would never say this. They would never, ever, ever admit this. I think it is a consideration that Jack Coombs Field is not due for renovations until after this season is done. And especially when you compare that to Clark LeClaire Stadium, which is going to be packed and for purposes of TV is going to look good. It's going to sound good because it's going to be loud. You consider those things if you're on the committee. Again, they wouldn't admit it, but I think that's something they talk about. So if you're comparing the 1-to-1, there are other cases to be made for Duke. Arizona as a host is questionable, but you kind of spread around the geography. And look, like there's some give and take with a committee, because with the Arizona decision, it's like, okay, if you give the Pac a host in Arizona, did you sacrifice future ACC member Cal, who was on the bubble, to get that favorable seating for Arizona, right? It's again, it's all give and take. And who knows? Maybe same situation next year because of renovations at Duke. It happens. ECU has dealt with stuff like that before, having to play regionals elsewhere before Clark LeClaire Stadium, right? I mean, they played at a minor league park in Wilson one year. It just so happens that it was not going to be able to be played at Durham Bulls Athletic Park if Duke hosted. So it sort of kept them out of the mix.
Well, so was it last year that Indiana State made it and then they had something else lined up during super regionals? Yeah.
So Indiana State made it, and something, I can't remember the exact circumstances, something kept them from doing it in Terre Haute. So they just did, it was the super regional. So they went to, who did they have? TCU in their super? I'm trying to remember. So they just, rather than playing it somewhere else near Terre Haute, Indiana, they just made Indiana State the visitors.
Yes. Yeah. I can't remember who it was.
So again, we've seen things like this before. It would not be the wildest thing that Duke's facilities kept them from being named a host. It would be egregious because they earned it. And again, in a banner year for the ACC, they won the ACC tournament. But all things considered, I think they're in a pretty okay spot. I think, and that might have been intentional on the committee's part. It's hey, we know we are shorting them, so maybe we put them in a group of 4 that's a bit more favorable. Because it seems like every other ACC team, there's another SEC team right there that's going to be pretty stingy.
So Wake Forest and Duke are the only ones out of the 8 that aren't paired up with an SEC team.
And I'll say this about Wake Forest. Greenville's a tough place to play anyway. Especially if it is to be assumed that you're going to be matched up with East Carolina in the regional final. Look out for Evansville. The Purple Aces are the they're the 4th seed in that bracket. Metrically, they could have been a 3, and they're the best 4 by a long shot.
Yeah,
that's a tough bracket for, it's tough for ECU because Wake's there. It's tough for Wake because ECU's there, but it's going to be tough for both of them because Evansville and VCU are pretty good. So I think that's an interesting one. Wake Forest is a team that coming in, I probably would have said, yeah, they've got one of the best shots to make it, sort of blindly before we knew.
Right.
I still might say that, but that's a competitive regional.
Yeah. Hopefully, I don't say this in a bad way, but I know Trey Savage is dealing with some injuries. I know that people would want to see Chase Burns against Trey Savage, battling it out, but it'd be nice if they didn't have him available. I mean, not saying he's not beatable.
Yeah.
But any team would rather not face the other team's ace. And it would definitely favor Wake Forest if Savage isn't able to pitch any of these games. And I don't know much about Oklahoma, except that Skip Johnson is the head coach. He's still the head coach, right?
Yeah, and they were favored in the Big 12. It's a good team. I'm not saying it's not a good team, but if you're going to be the ACC team that we are looking at to be sort of like the Road Warriors, because Wake Forest is going to ECU, but that's kind of, it's nearby.
Yeah.
Duke's having to travel a ways.
if that's going to be the case, I think I would rather it be the one with the far and away best bullpen and best pitching staff, assuming that Jonathan Santucci and Kyle Johnson are going to be good to go.
Yeah.
Because that's what travels, pitching and defense.
Yeah.
And it's a good pitching team. It's a good defensive team. Not to mention it's,
they can hit.
One of the best hitting teams in Duke baseball history.
Yeah. And
so, yeah,
Ben Miller's swinging a bat again. So,
yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So I feel good about them.
I do too.
Where they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does anything else stand out? Well, I'm sure I think I know what might. North Carolina, the number 4 national seed, and they get saddled with LSU.
Yeah. And whatever reasoning. Well, and also Clemson gets stuck with Vanderbilt. And I know you look at the records of LSU and Vanderbilt, they're not good, but they're better than what their record is. A lot better, especially this late in the season. They've been playing so much better. And I'm not complaining, and I'm not saying that's not fair because it's baseball, and I understand that this is the time of year you got to play your best. But it's just the irony there that SEC teams get thrown in as a number 2 behind what did I say? 6 or behind 5 of the number 1 seeds, the number 2 seeds, and those all 5 of those are SEC teams. So it's like somebody's trying to make sure the SEC or the ACC has the best competition against them. Whereas you look at some of these other brackets, I don't know. I don't want to mention any other team names because I don't want to talk bad about any other teams, but there's some weak brackets too, compared to what the ACC teams are in.
Yeah. I agree. And look, like with so many of regional 1 and 2 seeds being ACC and SEC clubs, especially given that they don't like to match up teams from the same conference in regionals.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to happen by nature of setting it up, right? There are so many ACC teams and SEC teams. That said, there are some tough draws here. Virginia with Mississippi State as their 2 seed. A lot of people thought Mississippi State could host. There are some interesting ones. Now, I will say Indiana State is the 2 seed Kentucky.
That's
and
not easy.
Lexington. That's
Yeah.
not easy,
Right.
because they, number 10 RPI. I mean, that Indiana State could have easily been a host. That's a really good team.
Yeah. They don't want that nonsense to happen again from last year, right?
Right. So again, there are other versions of what we're talking about that don't include ACC teams, and it's just, it's a testament to the caliber of baseball that's out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I almost wonder, and Kyle Peterson tweeted out something along these lines after the selection show yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with him. I would like to see a true seeding 1 through 64.
Yeah.
And play it that way. And you might end up with some regional ACC versus ACC or SEC versus SEC matchups.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
But it's going to give you a truer representation as long as you're using a metric, which again, that's another issue.
Yeah.
As long as you're
what's the metric? Right.
Right. As long as you're using a metric that it is optimal, and RPI is not that. But if we could find one and do a true seeding 1 through 64, seed it out that way, literally. And so it's no more placing the 2s and 3s wherever is regionally convenient, because the NCAA pays for that travel.
Right. Right.
It's cool, again, that we do get the regional matchups. So like South Carolina in Raleigh at NC State this weekend is kind of cool. When James Madison somehow makes the field, them being put somewhere regionally is, I guess, kind of cool. Oral Roberts, Oklahoma, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
I know that that's how it's been done for a long time. But I think it's time to move on. And again, this is KP's idea, but I agree with it.
Yes.
And I think you would avoid a lot of things like, look, LSU could have easily won the SEC championship. And yes, they didn't have a great first half of the season, but that's a really, really good team, a really, really talented team.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not rewarding North Carolina while also naming them the number 4 national seed for having one of the most consistent seasons in the entire country.
Yeah.
By putting a mismatched seeding matchup in there. Because again, if we were to plot it out 1 through 64, like because you got to serpentine it. So therefore, the 2 seeds, it would be, the worst 2 seed. So 32 would be the 2 seed for the 1. Right. 32. Are you telling me LSU is as bad as the 32nd?
Right.
Or I guess, hold on, 32 and 32. 32, so they'd be 28th. So is LSU the 28th best team in the country?
No, they're way higher than that.
That seems kind of low right now, right? So
yeah.
So once we get the math right, you can see what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I was picking up what you're putting down. It's exactly right. I read that too, and he even said maybe 72. But whatever it is, I think that's how you get your true Cinderella stories too. Because if one of these teams at the bottom aren't great, but they have one good pitcher that has a good game or something, there's the upsets, and you're not like complaining about certain teams being thrown into your bracket because geographically it works out better because NCAA is paying for it. I just think there's so many positives to having it that way, but I think it needs to be set on one person, one website, one like D1 should be the only one that can rank 1 through 64. Baseball America, Collegiate Baseball, whoever these others that used to do it all the time, or the coaches poll, they can still be there, but the one that matters is the D1. The D1 polls, and then that's how you set the tournament. And just be done with it.
Sure. And I get look, I know we're D1 people. It's the logo's up top there. So I don't want to necessarily make it about that, because there are like, that's a powwow between the other guys, Fit.
Yeah.
And
and that's fine. Then whoever it wants to be.
Right. Whatever it would be, it would just need to be one consistent. I like having something analytical to where it is a formula of sorts. And if we can fine tune a formula, maybe it's this KPI that just, as of this year, was started to be used by the committee. Maybe it's our friends at 643 in the Diamond Sports ranking.
Mm-hmm.
It's not RPI. I think we're all done with that, right?
Because you're rewarding some people for RPI, but then some you're saying RPI doesn't matter. So which one is it?
I like that once we realizing that the numbers, some of these, like, none is perfect right now. And if we're incorporating multiple, I like the awareness that we are incorporating multiple, and it's kind of fluid, right? Mm-hmm. At the same time, and I said this when we talked about DSR on this show at the beginning of the season, like, isn't the idea to get it down to one metric where we don't even have to think about it? It, like, in a perfect world, we've got one metric that tells us, spits it out, and we just kind of live with it, right? Like, we could quibble about this spot or that spot, but that's what this says, Mm-hmm. And if it's fine-tuned enough, and if it's a reliable enough metric, we just go with that.
Yeah.
And then that's when we get our 1 through 64 or 72 or however many it would be in the future. And you just plot out the seeds and serpentine through the 1s, back up through the 2s, then the 3s, then the 4s. So anyways, that's the end of the soapbox about how we get where we arrive. For now, we've got what we've got, and we do have some really compelling matchups. I think it's going to be a fun regional weekend. It
is.
Maybe we start here. Who do you think has the best path out of the ACC to get to a super regional?
So I feel like Duke, because of, and again, I don't know much about Oral Roberts or UConn, and not even a whole lot of Oklahoma, except that Skip Johnson has been a great pitching coach and manager or head coach for quite some time now. But just seeing Duke just stomp everybody they played in the ACC Championship was pretty impressive. And then you get great pitching from Andrew Healy and the rest of that bullpen. And they did all this without Jonathan Santucci and Kyle Johnson. But Johnson should be ready for, talking to Coach Pollard the other day, he sounded like they're just going to give him a breather and have him ready for regionals. And he's got an electric arm. So you're adding an extra arm to an already stud pitching staff. I do like Florida State to an extent. And I know Stetson and UCF sometimes, like, when they play other Power 5 Florida schools, they play differently. But I think Florida State is better than what they showed in that last game of the championship. I think there's something to be said about each one of these. I can tell you that the tough ones, and we've touched on them briefly, North Carolina, Virginia, Clemson, NC State. I mean, these aren't going to be easy to get by, obviously. You almost wonder what Georgia Tech is going to do. I know Georgia has been pretty good.
Yeah, so I thought a lot about Georgia Tech too. And their Friday game against UNC Wilmington, that's a team that I've seen a fair amount and I like and respect a lot. And I think the CAA got snubbed because that could have easily been a 3-bid league. Um, but there's a Georgia Tech plays in Athens every year. Like there's a familiarity there.
Yeah.
It's not going to be intimidating.
It's a rival.
It's a rival. So like they don't, they don't think of Georgia any differently in this setting than they would have on a Tuesday in the first third of the season or middle of the season. So I think there's something to that with Georgia Tech. Like they could make some noise. Maybe not to the point of winning the regional, but they're not just going to get walked all over.
Right.
I like Florida State, like you. I think part of my thinking with Florida State and Duke is I just think they're that good. So Duke, I continue to think is a World Series caliber team. I could see them coming out of Norman as the winners. South Carolina is an SEC team that I don't love. Bryant is really good. They're sneaky good. And James Madison, to me, shouldn't have been in the field. So I kind of like NC State's layout.
Yeah.
Virginia's going to be tough because Mississippi State's really good.
Well, they're just their bats need to be swinging.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, if Virginia gets out of that, look, Arkansas is really good. I kind of like that matchup for Virginia in a super. Because Arkansas doesn't score a lot of runs. So I think, look, like the ACC has had in the past as many as 4 in the College World Series. I don't know that that'll happen.
When was that?
But it's on the table, 2015, right?
Oh, when Virginia won?
Yeah. Let me check. Let me double check that. That's off the top of my head.
That'd be pretty sweet. And do you know offhand if Hagen Smith does he have anybody else behind him in Arkansas?
Yeah, they can pitch really well. Like the whole staff, he's sort of the front liner, but the whole staff is good. Let's see, how would I look this up? I'm trying to backwards engineer this.
So
all right, I'll find it by the time we're done.
Yeah, Arkansas. Yeah, their team ERA is the best in the country in Division I. So, which is a 3.65, which is so bizarre to me. That's 5 teams. Yeah, 5 teams have an ERA under 4. I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, North Carolina is like sub 5 and they're top 15 in the country.
Yeah, so they're 4.23 and they're 15th. Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting, man, to see how this all plays out. Do you know much about Alabama?
Well, so Rob Vaughn, as their head coach, they lost some guys to the transfer portal, like Luke Holman, who's at LSU, was there.
Yeah, and that freshman left-handed hitter, where did he end up going? I can't think of his name now. I'll pull that up while he was a good hitter. He actually went to school with Brock Wilken in high school, and there was talks that he was considering transferring to Wake Forest this year, but he ended up going somewhere else.
I'm trying to find this ACC teams in the College World Series, so forgive me. I'm not.
That's all right. That's okay. And, I was reading some stuff earlier. I think it was something that Fit put, how Duke's non-conference strength of schedule wasn't very good. So that could have been a possibility. But Tennessee, who's number 1 in the country, their non-conference strength of schedule isn't good either. I think they're 174.
Yeah.
And Duke is 220 something. But I mean, they're going to say one thing about one team and it doesn't matter about the other team.
Yeah, that's just it, right? Like that's what you're constantly going to deal with as long as it's set up the way that it's currently set up, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Colby Shelton, he went to Florida.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Trying to see 3 in 2013. I don't think 2015 was it. Maybe 2014. This is great listening, great audio, as I'm.
Yeah. Everybody's probably going to be like, I know the answer. I know the answer.
I hope somebody's screaming at their listening device right now, telling me that the right answer. So Virginia, Louisville, but they were in the American at the time, so just 1 24. I don't know. Anyways, I don't want to waste people's time for them hearing me type and whatnot. So we'll find it. The ACC's had as many as 4. I'm not saying it's going to happen. It's on the table. There weren't many question marks entering the selection show. Georgia Tech was the only one. Once we saw that they were in, everybody else was kind of a lock.
Yeah.
And that typically means you're a pretty good team and capable of getting to Omaha. So that bodes well. Now, the SEC broke the all-time record and they have 11 teams there.
Yeah. Of course they do.
So that's something else to consider, is just by sheer volume, they've got a pretty good shot of having a good number of teams in it.
Right.
So anyways, it's going to be fun. And then there's the unpredictability factor. Like, you never know what's going to happen with certain regionals. I mean, a team goes off for a singular game and then who knows? You mentioned Clemson's regional. I like them a lot in that one. Coastal's not. Yeah, who knows? Maybe there's some magic with Gary Gilmore, it being his final hoorah, and Coastal certainly is familiar with playing games at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. But that's not a scary regional to me for the Tigers. Right. I like High Point. Saw them this past week at the Big South Championship, but I don't know that they're a huge threat.
Not scary.
Yeah, I mean, they might be. Everybody here is going to be competitive,
Yeah.
And everybody here has good players. You're not here if you don't.
Right.
But from a team versus team aspect, I'm not 100% sure there's one to be super worried about. I get your point about Vanderbilt. They're just not a team that scares me that much.
Yeah. Good. That's good to know. So it seems like A&M's. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So I was going to say, I feel good about most ACC teams' chances to break through their regionals. And they're not all going to, right? Like I would say probably between the two, I'm trying to think of an example, Virginia, Mississippi State, and Florida State, Alabama. Like maybe we only get one of those two.
Yeah. Well, Florida State's regional and Oklahoma, where Duke is, be nice to have those two teams because they'll play each other in the supers, so we can guarantee one getting to Omaha.
Yeah, for sure. So it'd be great to get Duke and Florida State there, which would be kind of cool, right? ACC title game rematch as a super. Maybe the more fair way to put it is Virginia, Mississippi State, North Carolina, LSU. Realistically, we only get one of those two. But that's okay, right? Like I'll split those 1-2 matchups with the SEC because then we get a pretty good shot at getting multiple teams in Omaha.
Yeah.
No, I'm excited. It's there's some interesting stories. And then, I mean, the potential of if Wake Forest comes out of the Greenville bracket and Knoxville's regional goes chalk, we get a Chase
Get
Burn
Wake Forest again.
matched up with Tennessee from where he transferred, which is pretty interesting storyline wise. That could be cool.
How awesome would that be?
Yeah. So there are some things in play here.
Yeah.
Locally,
so awesome.
Locally here in North Carolina, LSU at UNC is compelling because of Tommy White. And it's like, okay, you broke NC State's heart by transferring. Then you broke Wake Forest's heart by beating them last year.
Yeah.
So, the one of the four ACC schools in North Carolina left is North Carolina. So maybe he just continues to wreak havoc on college baseball fans here. I don't know, but
or maybe he doesn't.
Or maybe he doesn't, right?
Yeah.
That's just it. Maybe he doesn't.
Yeah.
And
I mean, no offense. He needs, I'd like him to go get ready for pro ball somewhere and North Carolina take this one. Yeah. That'd be real nice. Because if North Carolina, I should say win, I'm going to be very optimistic here. I think North Carolina is better. I think they're better all around, and they're playing at home, which they've only lost 2 games all year. When they get by here, I think they're in the College World Series. I think this would be the tougher matchup than whoever comes out of the bracket that they're supposed to be playing. That has Arizona, Grand Canyon, West Virginia, and DBU.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it sets up to, if they can get by LSU, again, I'm going to preface all of this. None of these are easy paths, right? These teams are here for a reason. They're good teams. That is a favorable path for North Carolina, because at that point you've got somebody from Arizona. Dallas Baptist could be the super regional team. I mean, that's a trip for those teams.
Yeah.
And North Carolina continues to play at their home venue. So that sets up pretty well for them to get to Omaha.
Yeah. That'd be real nice.
I like it. Any final thoughts? Where are you going to Bristol? Are you going to be in studio this weekend?
No, I'm doing everything from here this weekend, but I'll be in studio for Supers.
Nice. Okay. But you will be on television. You will be.
Yes. Yep. Yep. Well, I take that back because the Duke softball team is in the College World Series, in the Women's College World Series. So if they're playing a certain night, then I won't be on because it'll be softball heavy.
Nice.
And so when they have days off or if they get knocked out, then I'll be on.
Nice. Speaking of which, we don't maybe give enough softball love. What a cool story.
Yes.
Duke getting they were the number 10 seed, I believe, and kind of overlooked by the committee.
Yes.
Despite that, getting to OKC is a pretty cool story. That's really nice.
And they get rewarded by playing Oklahoma.
Oh,
I think, right? Is that's it? That's their first? Yeah. But they're there, which is great. But they shouldn't have been a number 10 seed. They should have been top 8 for sure. Yeah. But they went out and beat Missouri twice.
Love it. Love that. Good mojo that we can hopefully relay to ACC baseball.
Yeah.
It'd be nice.
It's nice. ACC teams, man, whatever sport. Women's lacrosse won a national championship too.
Yeah.
Which like that Boston College. Yeah.
Lacrosse is, I don't know. Like, we don't always win those, but ACC teams win lacrosse championships a lot.
Yeah. And Notre Dame back-to-back men's lacrosse.
Yep.
Yeah. So
a lot of good mojo.
That's the ETC in our show. But by the way, I did sit down with Larry Sorensen for a while, and he was giving me a tutorial on the pitch logic. It's fantastic, dude. Oh, we got to get him on here one day.
We should. Yeah. And we should have, we talked about it prior to the ACC tournament.
Yeah.
Getting one of the balls out there and just like playing a game of catch and tracking the metrics on it.
It looks
we're all
fantastic.
Though. So,
and it's so like, how would you say it? Like so portable, you can bring it everywhere.
Yeah.
Whereas opposed to some of these other things like TrackMan and what's the other one? I can't even, Rapsodo. Like these are all machines you got to set up, and like this pitch logic thing is the ball and your phone or your tablet. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
That's it. It's so like you can throw anywhere and it's going to get you the readings.
You don't even need somebody to throw with either.
Yeah.
Which is insane. Yep.
Pretty great.
It's pretty cool.
I'm glad you got to do that. That's good.
Yeah.
Because again, we sort of hung out for maybe a few hours in one of the days, and otherwise we didn't. We had our own things going on, so we didn't see a lot of each other. I said hey to Larry right before they went on for a Wake Forest broadcast at one point, but didn't see him a ton.
Right.
So that's good. I'm glad you got that and finally got to see it. That's pretty cool. Good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really good. Really good.
Nice. All right. Parting thoughts before we head into regional weekend.
This time of year like makes me nervous, man. I don't know why, because I don't have a horse in the race, but I just want ACC to represent, to shut these other people up, you know?
Yeah.
And I say other people, I guess it's all the people on social media that just talk trash because SEC gets this and that. And so it just like fires me up a little bit. I need to grow up, Daron. That's what I need to grow up.
Let me ask this, because you were on set for all ACC in between games and the lead up to games all week for the ACC Championship, favorite on air moments, and maybe this turns into favorite personalities of players, coaches, etc. Well, just like rattle off whatever comes off the top of your head.
So I played football with the Duke team when they played Miami in the semifinal. So there was a lightning delay, and we went off air, and we were supposed to come on like every 30 minutes to give an update. And I said, I think I should go down there and play football, because they were throwing their football. So I went down there, hung out with Chuck B, and James Talon was there, and Tyler Albright. So we just started throwing the football. And and Andrew Healy, he's like, wait, you're not going to throw the football? You came down here and you're not going to throw it? So I'm like, give me the ball. So I got it and I started throwing it, and we got it on camera, me throwing a tight spiral. It was pretty nice. And then just all the guests, 99% of the guests that we had were so legit. They were so much fun. Tried to get Coach Forbes Jordans from him again, and he still said no. Yeah.
Fair.
So that's a thing. And he did tell me, he's like, if you wear a North Carolina polo on air, I'll get you any ones that you want. I said, extra large, send it to me. Yeah. There's so many cool moments, dude. I had these little hands. I don't know if you saw any of them. Like
okay, that was going to be our next question. What was the story with those? Because and for those who did not see, I'm going to describe them as little. They went on the tips of your fingers, but they were like little hands. They were shaped like hands. So it's almost like your index finger had an entire hand at the end of it. Yeah.
Yes. So it's been a staple in our family for years. Like my wife used them to pet our dogs, just playing around. I think my daughter found them or got them in elementary school years ago for like having a good week or something.
Sure.
You know, the treasure box, you get to pick whatever. So she brought them home. And the day before I went to Charlotte, I saw them in a drawer. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to take these. These would be awesome. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but they're going to be awesome. So I pulled them out and started shaking guys' hands with them. And when Forbes was on with us, I was giving signs with them. And then for the championship game, I made an ACC championship ring out of aluminum foil and put it on the little hand. It was beautiful. It was amazing. It was all shiny aluminum foil. The things we have to do to stay sane when we're covering so many shows in between games.
Yeah, it's a long week, so I can imagine.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun. I caught it after it had become a thing, so I wondered. But that's great. That's really good.
Yeah, they did a vignette of it the last day, so I'll send you the copy of that when they send it.
Oh
to me. It's pretty
send me
funny.
that.
And
Nice.
every game, the TV guys would like pan down on me, and Gabby Sanchez would text me and say, "Look up." So I'd look up, and I'd have the hands, and then I chugged a coffee and slammed it down like I was Gronk. It's just.
I had people texting me about that. Several people told me that was their favorite part of the entire week of shows. Yeah.
Nice. So I'll tell you what happened with that real quick. They showed me, and my coffee was sitting next to me, and it was my second coffee, and it was just sitting there. And apparently Mike Monaco says, "Oh, that's Danny Graves, the RN." And Gabby's like, "What? Registered nurse. He's nursing his coffee." So I said, I texted Gabby. I said, "If you show me again, I'll chug it for you." And then like immediately they came back to me. So I chugged it and just slammed it. Yeah. And everybody up there was like, "What is going on?" Like they had no idea what was happening. Yeah. It was
Great
funny.
stuff.
Good times, man. Good times.
Nice. A good crew too, by the way, right? Like shout out, because I got some time to hang out with all of them. Monaco was on the championship game.
Yeah.
He okay. I'm gonna feel the need. I don't know if they've covered this on maybe the D1 proper pod. You might have seen Aaron Fitt tweet something along the lines of Monaco avoided a Scotty Scheffler situation in the press area.
Yeah.
So he was doing the Sunday championship game, right? And Monaco, because he's all over the place with the games that he's doing, had a UFL game the day before. So on Saturday, he had a UFL game and then flew straight to Charlotte. So when he got there, he came into the press area and apparently told the staff at the door there, "Hey, I'm just here to say hi to a couple of friends who are here. And I'm with ESPN. I'm doing the game tomorrow. I might not have the appropriate colored wristband or whatever." So he walks in, and I think he had the purple wristband. You know how this works. It's the wristband method of credentials.
Yeah.
So I think he had like the purple, and he walks in, and apparently the woman at the door didn't say anything to him to be like, "Okay, I'm going to give you 5 minutes," and then, "Ooh, you better get out of here." Like she didn't say, "Sure, come on in." She just didn't advise him either way. So he comes in, and Aaron Fitt, and I are like 10 or 15 minutes into a conversation. And suddenly there's a guy in a police uniform just sort of like standing on the outskirts of this conversation. And so Monaco looks up, and it's like, "Oh, do I have to go?" And the guy's like, "Yeah." And it was this. Monaco he did it right. He walked out. It was fine.
Yeah.
It wasn't a serious. I don't think it ever really was like a serious thing. It's just he just didn't have the appropriate wristband. And I'm sure the poor woman who was working the door as game day staff, the door people for the press area, by the way, nicest people ever.
Yeah.
So I think she was probably just anti-conflict enough that she didn't want to say anything to him. So she went straight to the security guard.
Straight to the judge.
Yeah, which seemed aggressive, but I'm sure it was well intended. So it was a bit theatrical, or more dramatic than it needed to be. But Mike, he immediately or quickly after he left, got the right wristband and was back in there, and it was fine.
Yeah, but the whole thing is, it was 15 minutes later or whatever. So if it was somebody that shouldn't have been in there, that's a lot of time for somebody to do some damage to whatever.
Right.
Right.
And we're just like laughing about something when the guy walks up. So it's okay. Clearly he's not a problem,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
he just didn't have the right wristband. And again, I'm sure it was the woman who was working the door was just trying to do her job. That's what they all are. But the wristband policy can be a little particular about that stuff. And again, I appreciate the security measures.
Yeah.
But it's
I didn't know you
sometimes
needed a red one until like the third day to get in that room. Yeah. No idea. So, but it's all good. It's over with. Yeah. What can you do?
It was all good. It was funny. It was a little bizarre.
Yeah. So when you get a chance to talk to Fit again, ask him about my hands. I got him good. And he's on the vignette too, because he did some shows with us, which he was outstanding. Like he informed us and the viewers so much just in the few times that he was on. But when he was done, I went and shake his hand, and like you could see him go like this. Like he was hesitant. He's like, I knew you had those. People told me you had those, and you still got me. So yeah, ask him about those.
Final shout out, the cellar at Duckworth's. We went there twice, a group of us. Mike Farron and Gabby were kind of the leaders in this.
Yeah.
The cellar at Duckworth's. Next time it might be 2 years from now, but next time you and I are in Charlotte, because it's back in Durham next year, then back to Charlotte.
Right.
The cellar at Duckworth's. Good spot.
Yeah.
Good spot. We got to do that.
We definitely will. If any of those days that I'm not too tired, because I go straight to bed usually. Like I feel like such an old man, but it's such long days. I just need to get there earlier on the day before it starts, because that's what you guys did, right? You guys got there earlier and you were able to go. We went the night before to Monday night. Yeah,
so the night before games started, Monday night. We went, which would have been that would have been perfect. So but we went back later. So good spot. Highly recommend if we've got listeners in that area who haven't done it. The cellar at Duckworth's. Good people. Good the steak. Got a ribeye.
Oh, nice.
Well, good.
You know, we planned on doing something Saturday, like dinner or something, but because the second semifinal game was at 5, but there was a lightning delay, and we're still waiting on the lightning to hit.
Well, and the night before was North Carolina Wake, which went 12 innings. So it just doesn't make out for a good evening dinner at any point.
No. So, but it was still all good. I had a blast.
Yeah. Awesome time. Yeah. Shout out to the Charlotte Knights for hosting.
Yes.
They do a great job with the event.
Yeah.
Just a good week. One of my favorite weeks of the year.
Yeah.
All right. That's it. Enjoy regional play. We will talk again next week to talk about what's coming up in super regionals, because stuff happens fast this time of year.
Yeah.
At ACC BSB ETC, if you want to follow us on social media, like, share, rate, review, subscribe to the D1 Baseball YouTube channel so you can watch it rather than listen, if that is your cup of tea. SiriusXM app and wherever you get podcasts. I think that's it. That's all the necessary plugs.
But you can listen to it too if you're in your car, because we wouldn't want you to watch anything in the car. So that's what I did last time in Bristol. I because the drive to and from the hotel was like 30 minutes, so I would listen to the guys that you did without me. That was like my perfect opportunity to do it. So it worked out. It works out. It makes the drive so much quicker. Yeah,
I love that. All right. With that being said, Zach Morris of Duke, Vance Honeycutt of North Carolina. I sat down with both of them at the championship in Charlotte. They were both awesome. So be sure you go back and listen to those, and tell all your friends, ACC Baseball Etc. Listen to it. It's perfect time of year. Perfect time of year. Go get a D1 Baseball subscription, all that stuff. That's all our plugs. I promise. Plugs are done. That's Danny. I'm Darren. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.